Hi everyone, welcome to Anything with Kani, where we talk about film, fashion, music, and just about anything. And for today's episode, I invited my close friend Dan Fornolles. He is a resident cinematographer at 1990 Films, and he also makes music and goes by the name Kyl Aries. We got into a lot of topics like cinematography, making music, his transition from Cebu to Manila, and just much more. So hope you guys like it, and let's get into it. Your latest collaboration with Ash. What song was it? Drown?
Yes, Drown.
How was it working with him naman?
It's really good working with Ash, actually. Because he just gives you the freedom. Parang ibibigay, like, that time that he messaged me, I didn't expect him to.
And you guys worked before this one, right? For your song, Want You Here?
Yes, that was his song, too.
So that song's
Yes.
under Ash? Or is that under you?
Yes, under Ash.
Yeah, so talk to us about how you collaborated with Ash and how that went to be with, I guess we could start off with Want You Here.
I think with Want You Here, it's just, it's actually pretty unexpected. I didn't expect it to happen at all. But like the times before that, we just kept talking, like we should collaborate,
Yeah.
But like I think months after he asked me, like nothing really happened, and then suddenly he was like, "Yo, we should actually work on something," and then sent me an email.
Yeah, an email.
Yeah, an email
That's
of the
old school.
track.
okay. I thought you said you an offer through an email.
Of the track, and it was just the beat was quite finished. It's quite finished. So all I had to do was just the lyrics over it, the melody over it. So yeah, it was quite easy for me actually, because I don't like. It's hard for me to make a song from scratch.
Yeah.
Like when someone plays a guitar and then I have to sing to it and then we build up from that. It's actually easier for me to make a song when it's already a done beat and I just have to sing over it.
So,
Like a
prior to
freestyle.
giving you the beat, did you have an idea already on what the music is gonna be about, or how it's supposed to sound like, or did they just give you the freedom of creating something?
That was
over it?
I think that's the best part about the collaboration is he gave me the freedom of everything. Like
Okay.
what's it about, what the vibe is. It was just all up to me. So I was like, oh, okay, I could sing whatever I want to sing.
So run us through the track. Like, what's it about? What inspired you to make it? And
Want You Here is just basically just singing about the person you love and having them want to be home all the time. And in my situation, the person that I was dating that time we weren't really living together, so it was just I just wanted her beside me all the time.
Yeah.
Just a basic concept.
Yeah. The one thing I really like about your music is just how chill with this. Especially like, I remember the first time me and just a couple of the team like met you. We didn't know your background into music until we actually stalked your Facebook, and we saw we saw Beans in the Water, and it became like a thing for us to decipher what were the lyrics were, until we had one of us just like message you and ask you about the lyrics. And and I think coming from that to now, there's a huge progression towards the music that you create. So what gives you like the liberty or when's the time that you think it's easy for you to develop these songs, especially coming through like a busy schedule of doing like films and stuff?
I think at start I never really expected to, like, from that song Beans and Water. I think I was expecting it to be like that was the last time that I'll be singing, and
Oh, okay.
I won't be able to make something like that because it's hard for me to come up with melodies and time also. It
Mm-hmm.
was way easier for me back then to make beats and just chill and make beats and then continue with my work.
Yeah.
But
Why
I
was it
think
easier
now
before?
Why
was it easier before?
It was easier before because beats in general, it's just I didn't have to quite think about a lot of technicality.
Oh, that's true.
I think it was all just like what I was feeling and finding some tracks, sampling them, and then that's the beat itself, the vibe.
Yeah.
I think juggling with it, like with work and music, it's not that still not that hard actually. Because my music has like it wasn't really I wasn't really planning it to be the same level as my work. Because my work is like serious and I have to I get paid for it, a pro for it. Music was really just like, I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I didn't have to follow
anybody. It's a liberating
anybody.
thing for you, right?
Yeah, it was a liberating thing. So whenever because since I'm a freelance, whenever I don't have work or there's always weeks where that whole week you don't have work, then I always just spend my time in making music and making whatever I can make during that moment.
Yeah. So, one thing me and Ash were talking about in the first podcast is we were talking about you a lot, especially it was cut out in the original, on the actual episode because his audio's cut off. But then one thing we were talking about was we've only met a few people or a few artists where they can juggle two mediums in the same time, because we both feel the same way in terms of when you hone a skill or an art form, it's really hard to already master that craft. So trying out something else or trying out another, let's say if I would try, that's one of the main reasons why I kind of let go of dancing before, because I feel like it's hard for me to express storytelling or any other emotions that I want to into another medium if I want to excel in this other medium. I'm not sure if it makes sense.
Yeah. And it gets intertwined sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing I want to know more about your process with that. Like, how do you manage to separate the two of learning to express for another medium and keeping this expression for this other medium, which is music?
I think at first I was actually having a hard time too. So that's why every time I dive in, I actually have a lot of tracks that are not finished and a lot of tracks that are just it was just, kept in the shadows.
Yeah.
But I think after I realized how to split the pace of each, medium, because each medium has a pace.
Yeah.
And that's also the pace of how your learning process in terms of that whole art form. I managed to think about separating both of them and separating how I worked my skill in cinematography and how I worked my skill in music, and they're two different paces. Two different pace. And once I realized my music, it takes a lot of time for me to make songs, and I can't really force myself to come up with something. In terms of compared to my cinematography, where I can actually push myself to learn something in that span of time, because that's filmmaking in general. It's you have to think about a solution to a problem,
Exactly,
which also helps you with your skill. And once I realized that, that's basically the foundation to balancing everything.
Yeah. One thing I found really particular with your craft and music making is you have a certain sound that you do, even if you collaborate, let's say with your friend Alfred, or when you collaborate with Ash. These two artists have different sounds in itself, but one thing that you retain is like your voice, your stamp towards that song. And one thing I really want to know is, how did you develop that certain sound or that certain vibe that you always push with your song?
I think uh, with my voice, I think it's just my voice,
Mm-hmm. This is
and
you.
my voice is just really high, and I've been trying to control my singing voice for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was like still in high school, I was trying to sing really deep and
Yeah.
sing really manly. But then like I realized after a few times I try to sing, it just comes out that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after that, I learned. I think that's when I also realized like I was actually comparing myself to different artists
Mm-hmm.
that have a different voice
Mm-hmm.
that's not similar to mine. So that's what's keeping me from developing my sound.
Yeah.
Was actually listening to a whole completely different sound.
Yeah.
So when I found like a set of artists that had high voices, and that's when I started molding myself like, oh, I can actually
Like you connected
sing
with
like
them in a
this. And
way.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing you brought up was, um, was this back in high school that you were trying to keep your voice lower, or is it like college already?
Just high
High
school.
school, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess what comes with that is, I remember back in high school was such a, in a way, so it's very, there's this masculinity that's very toxic back then, that,
Yes, dude.
right? So like,
Yeah.
in a way you kind of have to change yourself. Even with myself, I try to take myself down with certain fashion choices or certain aspects of what I think I should do, or even just like when you care about how you look, it's already deemed
Yeah.
that as
Especially with
not
fashion,
masculine.
dude. Fashion was
Yeah.
the
People,
way to judge people.
exactly. People
100%.
are looking
Yeah.
down upon, like, if you dress nicely or if you just care about how you look, like, you're already deemed upon as someone who's not masculine. Which is
Mm.
one thing that I really like with what's going on right now, because with seeing the growth of a lot of these young people and a lot of these young designers just creating stuff that are, in a way, both for male and female, they're just crossing the border and removing that middle ground where two two of these entities are separate in terms of fashion.
Mm.
And it kind of, um and I felt that with myself, that I feel like I feel more confident in terms of, um just deciding which pieces to wear or which fashion items to wear, because I feel like people are just less judgmental in terms of that now.
Mm.
Yeah, have you ever like dealt with that before, or you transition to it now?
With fashion, or
Just in general, just like the toxic masculinity.
I've dealt with it quite a few times, but then I've always been, I think, in high school, I've always just been neutral. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't that type of guy that would dive in completely to a new trend and
Mm-hmm.
a new art form, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just quite neutral.
Yeah.
I was, I was judged for sure with my voice, but then, you know, I didn't realize back then that people actually didn't mind,
Mm-hmm.
like in terms of my voice, they didn't mind me singing a high note. It was just
Yeah.
all me, just
Yeah, it
being
was just in your
conscious
head.
about what people think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
It-
think I was being toxic to myself.
Yeah. It's just you. It's just facing yourself.
Mm.
One thing that me and the other episode we were talking about, because I just interviewed Plastic Honeymoon, and
Mm.
we were talking about just the fashion industry right now and how it was back then to how it is now. And I'm not sure if you can relate in any way, but how it was then, if you notice, if you go to stores that cater to both male and female, usually there's a smaller portion for the male and like a
Mm.
vast majority of options for the female, just because of
Yeah.
this idea of male are limited to certain pieces or certain designs,
Mm.
and which makes it harder for people who are like fashionable to actually pick out the designs that they want. And I feel like
Mm.
right now it's becoming easier and easier to pick out the pieces with a lot of these artisan brands creating like clothes that you actually want to wear.
Mm.
And then I've just seen the like a an incline of that with young designers of that. And one thing that inspires me from that is starting your business as a young person and excelling at that, because you're definitely like someone who's not old. You're 24, 25, 25, right?
25.
25. You just turned 25. We have the same birthday.
I
Birthday
just
at the
turned
other week.
25.
You just turned 25. um, what is it like being as a young person coming into the industry of? We can dive into film, or just the whole set life on diving into that as a young person, because I've come up with struggles myself. I kind of want to
Hmm.
know like what you've been through it as a young person trying to break through the industry.
Hmm. I think I had a little bit of help. I had most of the help from, people that are also my age that
Mm-hmm.
had connections to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of my age, it wasn't. I didn't think it was.
Oh, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Since when I started working, I had a beard before, so
Okay, so you
people
were
thought I was old.
okay. That makes sense. That
Or
makes
I
sense.
was like an adult basically. But in terms of being young, sometimes I feel like, the older generation filmmakers or
Mm-hmm.
the older people that have been in the industry,
Yeah.
they do judge young people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think not so much now, no,
Yeah.
because
Everyone's just
now
excelling.
everybody's young too now.
Exactly, exactly. And I think the hard part about it is just that competition is just getting really, really tougher. And I feel like we are young, but then there's just younger competitions right now. I've
Mm,
I've been part of a pitch recently where I was up against 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and they're really
mm.
good. So I guess that's
Yeah,
yeah. And just I
they're
think
weirdly good.
yeah, they're
For
really
some
good.
reason, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Some are pretentious, but some are really good. And I think what where that comes from is just accessibility of like learning in general. It's way easier to learn now because of the internet and YouTube
Mm.
and
And
like. Mhm.
I think the industry now has adjusted
Mhm.
to anticipating a lot of young people coming in
Yeah, yeah.
compared to like a few
Exactly.
years back, like even 3 years ago, 4 years ago. The industry was like, no, young people, ang bata mo pa, you're not allowed to
Yeah.
work.
No,
Yeah.
that's true. I feel like our generation was the one that break through that made it easier for the generation after us to kind of ride the wave in a way.
Mm.
Because one thing I definitely experienced during that time was I remember I had to lie a lot about my age, especially when I was starting out doing cinematography.
Mm.
Gaffers and rental people weren't taking me seriously. When I would tell
Mm.
them to put a light somewhere, they would already have their own judgment into where to put the lights, or
Mm.
like a preempt of thinking, oh, why should I follow this guy? He's really young.
Mm. Mm.
And I feel like right now the agencies, production houses are being more liberal in terms of who they take in, which is like
Mm.
really good because these young people are doing great. But then I kind of want to know in your end is, do you think there's a negative side towards that? Like these young people that are already going into the industry this young?
I'd like to believe that there's no negative part about
Mm-hmm.
having a young person, work, because
Yeah.
then, they can help solidify especially when they're really good, they can help
Yeah.
solidify the industry.
Exactly.
But I think when you're young, like even me and you can understand, like when you're young and then you know that you're good,
Mm-hmm.
minsan you always get that,
Ego.
you always
Ego
say,
builds up.
yeah, you
Yeah.
always boost your ego, and
That's
then
true.
you end up not making the right decisions
Yeah. Yeah. That's
just
true.
because you want to like impress other people and shit like that.
Yeah. I definitely
But
agree with that. Like, um, one thing that um helped me like keep my foot down, especially, or keep my feet down on the ground while trying to direct at a young age was
mm,
I started out like as a production assistant, and I feel like a lot of these younger people skip through ahead and don't experience the ground up coming up, and that's why they treat their PAs like crap. They treat their PAs like, you know, like they're worthless basically.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one thing that these young people need to understand, is that the importance of these production assistants or setmans or caretakers, like all of these people are actually running the set. And one thing that I learned from my professor way back was, filmmaking is not a pyramid. Everyone is in a plane, which is like an equal land, and everyone is underneath that. So everyone's carrying the same weight as everyone, because without one person, the whole set won't survive. Basically, yeah. And and to just dive in more to you, is just, you came from Cebu and then transitioned to working to Manila, right? What helped you like break through from coming from Cebu, especially, um, which I believe the industry is way more connected to each other there because it's a smaller place to be in. What made you transition to go into Manila?
I think because also saw when I was in film school still, we had an internship, and my first internship was here in Manila, and that's when I saw like, oh, in Manila it's actually a lot, like there's a lot of variety in terms of projects, films, or even fields of what to shoot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variety in Manila.
Yeah.
In Cebu, I think they're all connected, and that if you like, they're all connected to a point where there are already people that are established that can't be replaced. In my opinion, like it's either you really have to work really hard, harder than you work in Manila, to be able to, be respected and be trusted there, or you have to start your own thing there, which takes even longer than just working here.
Why is that? Like, why is it? Why do you think it's way harder to like make a name for yourself or be respected in Cebu compared to Manila?
I think it's because it's quite weird actually, because there's not a lot of competition there, but because there's not a lot of competition, companies or people are trusting like yung suki na production.
Oh,
like,
I see. Like, there's no options.
That one
basically.
production that's really good. Yeah.
That makes
Not
sense.
compared to here where there's like
You're battling out
like
with 10
10
other prods.
productions that are really good. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you can't really find like the best production.
Yeah.
You just have to stick to what their style is.
Exactly. That's why I really don't believe there's one production for every project. And that's why I don't believe in the monopoly of these agencies just getting one prod house for all of their different clients, because now you're just closing yourself into a different style, or you're closing yourself to different avenues in terms of filmmaking or just technique in general. Yeah, and
Yes,
I think
exactly.
I think it's very important now, especially that they're giving chances for even like a prod like us. Like, we're generally like really really small, but we've been part of like pitches that are considered really really big, and that's really, I think, really important for the industry, because now it's creating a variety in how ads are starting to look. Because I think at one point it started to look very similar to each other, and I feel the hardest part about now is just like finding originality and then changing it up, or making a stamp in terms of changing how the viewers see a certain product, right?
And it makes us all in a plane instead of like
exactly
person trying to be better than this production trying.
Yeah, because I feel like we are at a time in an advertising, at least, where we've seen everything. We've seen everything to be done, and there's no such thing as an original idea anymore. But I feel like one thing that makes everything stands out is how much how integrated your design is in terms of what you're making. So especially like when that's what I've been trying to do with whenever we work on a project together, or whenever we work in our production company in 1990, is that trying to figure out is an unorthodox way to say something. And yeah, it's one thing I really like with our collaborations with our team, is that everyone just has a say, and everyone has something to collaborate, compared to other teams that I've got to work with before starting this, that
Yeah.
what the director says usually is what gets followed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like
Which is what I like with working with you, man.
yeah,
It's,
thanks, man, thanks, man.
we experiment, but like we also still try to test it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like that's one thing why I'm really comfortable in terms of working with you, because I guess one hard part about experimenting on different designs or different techniques is that there's no assurance that it will look well or it will look good. But then one thing that you do that but one thing that you do is that you're always prepared with a backup plan, and um you're really organized in terms of what you work with. And
Thanks, man.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. And then having someone like that in terms of your cinematography is really important, because then you can explore, okay, we know we got the basics down. Now, how do we elevate from that? And that's why I feel like as an artist or as a director, and I think everyone in our team can say this, everyone like grew together, even from our first work together for Lian and Ara someday looks way different from our work now. But then when I was going back at it, it still looks good, and it still looks like great. And I feel like we create this comfortable space where and everyone can experiment, even down to our AD or our PM at that time, because it's
which is
yeah.
which is the best thing about working together. Like even if the concept is basic, there's always an element of something we have to learn
Yeah,
every time.
exactly. And one of my favorite projects we've done recently is just the Lian and Nara destination, where they collaborated with Ash. And one thing what I really like about that, it's generally, if you think about it, a simple concept. It's three people singing in front of a background, and there's just a bunch of stuff there that Natalie put. Natalie's our production designer, by the way. Natalie put, but then like I think what made it good, or what made it different, is just the execution of where the camera goes, or how the camera transitions from one
Exactly,
scene to
yeah.
another. It makes
Yeah.
it look like it's a bigger set than what it is. Like, for those who don't know, the way we thought of that idea was we folded up like little paper and just tried it out with our phone. Yeah, I tried to show it.
It looked like a whole set. It wasn't even like a big ass set. It was just
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna show some
sakto lang yun.
behind the scenes photos so people who are watching can understand that. But yeah, and I feel like that kind of experimentation is really important with every project that we work in, because we never want to create something that's the same as our other project. One thing that I noticed with your work style, or your cinematography style, is that it's very clean, but at the same time you can adjust to what the direction is or what the project needs. So tell me about, how did you come up with that certain cinematography style that you have, and what makes you think of different ideas to implement in different projects?
I think right now my style is, I don't really know what my style is to be honest. But before, I was trying to push myself to make everything look cinematic and make everything look really contrasty, really emotional. But then, like, years after I worked with a lot of different people. That's when I realized, like, I can't really, put my style in all of the concepts, even if it's like a small amount. So after that, I tried to learn different type of styles
Yeah.
where it's not even in my element of lighting or shooting or whatever, which is 100% harder
Uh huh.
in terms of application. But I think I got inspired with a lot of old cinematographers, really veteran cinematographers, where you watch their work and their reel is, it looks like it's been shot by like 10 different people, 10 different cinematographers.
Yeah, yeah. They're not
And that's
boxed
what I
into
try
one kind
to,
of look.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I try every time when I shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like I keep my style present
Mm-hmm.
when it's really necessary or when it can fit in even in the slightest
Mm-hmm.
window.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, in terms of the different types of work that we've done, one element that I've seen is you can really clearly make your stamp into a project like a film or a music video compared to an ad. Because I feel like with working in an ad or working towards making a advertisement, there's a certain element of being polished where it has to be very polished in terms of how it looks, which kind of disregards the idea of doing something that's different, or because a lot of these companies are after that kind of look, that advertising look, what everyone talks about, right? But I feel like one way we integrated that is, how do you manage to work on these advertisements but still have an element of yourself in that, and not being succumbed to just, oh, I'll just light this like how other people are lighting it.
I think it's all about my rendition of how other people light a certain thing. Like I would say I would watch like a lighting setup of a person, and I would figure it out how to achieve that same look in my terms or in my kind of integration of my style.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense though. It makes sense. What have you been doing during this quarantine, man?
Oh man, I've been playing a lot of video games, dude. Yeah.
Man, this quarantine.
Not really. Like I haven't really tried making music or shooting anything. Not really. I've just been cooking a lot and playing a lot of video games.
Yeah.
I think that's also the downside of, like, in terms of me making music, like the downside of this quarantine is, I can't really make music when I can't go out, which is weird, because some people, they can make music just staying at home.
They
all
rather
the time.
like
I
be in a
can't do
jail
that.
cell and themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So could you say your inspiration towards making music, it's heavily invested with going out, or just being
Yes.
outside?
Yeah, my music is it's partly the feel of my songs, or has the environment that I'm in during that time of me listening to a song or like a rough recording is the main inspiration of how it comes out afterwards. So like
That makes sense though.
sometimes I make a song and then I record it, and then when I feel like it's lacking something, I would go out and I would find like an environment, like whether it's like a grass field, or sometimes I would go to a coffee shop. Sometimes I would just walk around, like, the parking lots outside the mall.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I would just, watch people. It's kind of creepy. Watch people. I'd watch people and then, kind of embrace the environment. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
after that, after the whole feeling of the environment, I would put that emotion into my song and add that element of the song.
No, that really makes sense. And one reason why I say it makes sense is that whenever I hear your music, it's best listened to. Your music is best listened to when you're outside, or when I'm driving, or when you're cruising. And
Mm.
I feel like, especially with your latest song, there's like a bunch of birds playing there,
Mm.
and yeah, it's very attached to the space that you're in. Like
Mm.
whenever I listen to Goldskin, I still remember waves. I still remember the time that we were all in Bohol.
Yes,
Yeah.
dude. Me too,
Whenever
man.
whenever you play, cause it's always in my playlist whenever I'm driving or whenever I'm taking a bath or something. And whenever
Mm.
that song comes in, and it creates this timestamp on one memory that I had is when we were all just sitting outside of our hotel room, just chilling
Mm.
and by the pool. And for me,
Mm.
it's just crazy and how much songs can do that, and
Mm.
it creates like this bookmark in your life where you listen to this, it
Mm.
triggers a moment.
Mm.
Yeah, and I kind of like that process of how you do it. And you mentioned about how you watch other people, and
Mm.
that's what inspires you in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's funny part about that. Me and Natalie before had a game. When we were
Mm.
really bored, we would sit down in a very public area. We would look at
Mm.
different people, and we would try. Like this is one of a. It's a game, but it's more of a, what do you call that? What do you call those games that help you enhance a skill?
I don't know.
Basically, we have this game where we
uh.
sit down in a public place, look at the different people, and try to guess or try to make a background story of about that
Mm.
person.
Oh, that's cool,
Yeah,
dude.
and one thing that helped me a lot is because of playing that game, and even when I'm not with Natalie, I just play it alone, or when I'm waiting for her or something, I still play that game, and it helps me a lot in terms of just thinking of stories out of the blue, or
Mm.
especially times when you have to conceptualize. It helps me. It helps me just in think of these concepts, or think of this different archetypes of people, and bring it into a project in a way.
Mm.
So yeah, I feel like I'm also inspired by the outside, which is why the quarantine's making me crazy.
Mm.
And I think you know this. I'm just not a I'm not a person that likes to stay inside. And
Yeah, dude.
yeah, one thing why it's really hard for me with staying indoors is just trying to be productive. I know this is not a time where, because I've seen a lot of posts where this is not a time where it's a test of productivity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, not really.
yeah, and I agree with that. But then, as for myself, I hate being unproductive. That's one
Mm.
of the things I really hate, especially like at times like this where you're forced to be unproductive,
Mm.
and especially with our job, because our job requires us to be outside. We,
Exactly,
yeah,
dude.
we can't work
It
from
requires us
home.
to travel to a lot of different places we haven't been.
Yeah, exactly. Like especially just in film in general, it's just your inspiration are different people, just knowing their stories and going and trying to tell them.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the hard parts about staying indoors is just I just feel uninspired in a way. That's why I created this podcast. It gives me this illusion where I'm actually working on something, because
Mm.
it takes me roughly a day or two to edit this one, like an
Mm.
episode, because the file is really big. When the video I'm using right now, it will, once it's done recording in an hour, it's gonna be roughly 100 gig.
Damn,
Yeah,
a
it's
hundred
100
gig.
gig. It's crazy. That's already 1080p. I think because of the ProRes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then
Oh, cause Black Magic pala.
yeah, and I've migrated to editing using DaVinci
Hmm.
instead of using Premiere, because Premiere
Hmm.
can't handle that kind of a file anymore.
Shit.
Yeah, and but migrating to DaVinci is really convenient because now I can just color grade right after. I don't have to
Hmm.
export it and color grade in DaVinci.
Just one workspace, no?
Exactly. Going back into your life as a cinematographer, one
Hmm.
thing that's really, I feel like what not a lot of just people in sets deal with is having your girlfriend as an assistant director.
Oh.
So how's that? Like, what's the difference between like working with someone that you know closely with
Uh,
versus someone you don't know at all or don't have that connection with?
uh,
Because you clearly,
uh,
for those not aware, the production designer, the director, cinematographer works closely with the assistant director because the assistant director basically gives a schedule and tells them if they're taking
mm,
too much time in their preparation.
mm.
So, going back, how do you think what do you think the difference is with working with your girlfriend, Ray?
I honestly think that it's not that hard. I'm pretty sure, like, if the situation was to be, like, if we were dating
Mm-hmm.
before we were working together,
Mm-hmm.
then that would be, I think, might be a problem, like a potential
Oh
problem,
yeah,
because
because you met
then
her
it's
through
hard for
set.
you to
Yeah,
separate the thing.
that makes sense though.
But now I think it's not that hard since, like, I met her on set and
Mm-hmm.
we weren't dating that time,
Yeah.
and we already had like a work dynamic in a way,
Yeah.
so that never changed.
So did
Like,
that translate well into terms of like your work dynamic translating to just your personal relationship dynamic with each other?
I think so, yeah,
Yeah.
because that aspect where I had a crush on her,
Mm-hmm.
it was also it was also because, you know, she's easy to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and how her work ethic is on set.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, that
So
makes
yeah.
yeah. That makes so much sense, man. That makes so much sense. Have you ever experienced just a director not having a like a really concise or clear vision, which um made you have a hard time developing in what design to do in terms of your lighting?
Hmm. I had a few, but it always gets what's the word? It always gets a lot clearer once they show me or help me get immersed to what
Mm-hmm.
they watch or what they want to see in terms of them personally, like what they want to see and what all the films that they watch,
Mm-hmm.
and even pictures sometimes
Yeah.
help me completely, you know, clear things out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always get that struggle, but in terms of just talking to a director and him telling me what they want, but like that everything clears out once they show me like pegs or
Yeah, because it's a very
even
visual
pictures.
medium. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes so much sense. And
yeah. Because to be able to make something visually there, you have to also like see it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, that makes
It's
sense. That
always
makes
hard to,
sense.
like, for me personally, it's always hard to translate words into what you want to see.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I have a hard time. For me, I have a hard time personally writing scripts that are heavily needs to be visual. So
Hmm.
I try to create this dynamic or try to create this process where when I tell a certain concepts, it's kind of derived. It's kind of coming from a like pegs or coming from different inspirations, paintings or artworks that are already currently
Hmm.
existing. Cause
Hmm.
but I feel like with the times right now, applications are making it way easier to express a certain idea already.
Hmm.
Like recently, we both dabbled into trying out Cinetracer for our latest pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like apps like that are doing such a good job. Or wait, is that a game? It's more of a game, right?
It's more of a game,
More of
but
a game. Yeah,
it's also an app.
simulator. Right?
Hmm. Simulator,
Simulator.
yeah.
Yeah. Like one of the upsides of that simulator is just like it creates a different avenue and where you can express your ideas way better than before,
Hmm.
rather than
Exactly.
yeah. It's I feel like the ideas are just more precise creating through that and seeing already what actually the final result might be.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
That helps a lot actually,
mhm.
because I think a lot of directors, I think even the good directors,
Mhm.
they don't 100% tell you what they want.
Yeah.
Just because they can't put it into words
Yeah.
or put it into words that's in your perspective.
Mhm.
Because each of us have different understandings
Yeah.
of what each person tells you.
Exactly.
So they always don't show you the clear picture.
Yeah, yeah.
And that app helps a lot with
Yeah, that's true.
with everything.
Yeah, that's one reason why I like working with the same team, like working with you, Natalie, Jesse, Vince, Ivan, and Trish and all that, is that it's just very convenient because it makes my job a lot easier because I don't have to explain, let's say, to you or to Natalie or the specific details of what I want. And because of how much we've been already working with each other, you guys we all kind of get the certain vision everyone wants to create. And I feel like that dynamic is just very important in terms of finding people you want to work with continuously. Because I've definitely been part of different sets where the dynamic is just off. Like the chemistry is just not there.
Yeah.
And I feel like people needs to assess their team like a relationship. If it doesn't work in one aspect, it's not gonna work in the long run.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
about
so
building,
that's one thing I. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like even how weird it sounds, even going through all of those team buildings that we do, like when we went to Bohol.
Yeah.
Where else did we go? Kuala Lumpur. Oh, wait, no. Did we go to... No, we didn't go there.
No.
We went to...
Kota.
Where did we go?
Malaysia
Kota,
and
Kinabalu.
Brunei.
Malaysia, though. We went
Yeah.
to Malaysia and Brunei. I feel like those are really important because it's like a investment in terms of just connecting with your team. Like a lot of people don't see the importance of how much connection really does in your work environment. Like one thing I've noticed in our sets, and I've noticed this way back, is that all of us don't talk as much to each other on what to do during the set compared to other sets that I've been part of. Like we kind of move in our individual spaces already, and then of course we ask each other, okay, is this okay, or does this work for you, or something like that. But then what that allows everyone to do is just everyone has a space of creating something. Everyone has a space of just creative freedom. Yeah, even if it's something as strict as an ad, everyone still has that space where they're just comfortable to create, and I feel that's just really important. Yeah, and then excuse me, and then with that kind of workflow, it just allows like me to envision it better. Like I feel like I could see the end result more now than when I was directing way back. Like whenever we create something, I can kind of already see it just because of I know what kind of you're gonna do already or what Natalie's gonna do. It just allows.
Because you're already familiar with each other's execution.
Yeah, exactly. And the only times it's just not clear if it's when we're experimenting or like when we're trying out something really, really different, and which
is unclear for all of us.
Yeah,
too,
exactly. But for
we
me,
have to guess and we have to learn a lot of things.
Yeah, for me, I feel like one important thing with our dynamic is just everyone is willing to educate each other. Like if you don't know one thing, we don't hold it against you, or no one holds it against you. Like collaborating, it's a major part of just filmmaking in general. And that's why I don't understand. For me, I'm not that type of director where I don't. For me, I can't really relate to auteurs or people who have such a strong idea in what each department will do. Yes, you're supposed to give them an a backbone towards what they're supposed to do, but for me, that's why you get artists, and you don't get just people who knows how to work a camera, or people who just knows how to make certain things happen, like a production designer.
Yeah.
You get artists because how I think, I've heard this in one documentary I watched. How I think sets should work, it's like an orchestra where there's a conductor,
Mm.
but you're dealing with so much artists who knows how to play their
Mm.
craft really, really well.
Mm.
And they all have their touch in terms of what the music will sound like. And
Mm.
I feel like that's just what teams in films should be.
Bro, wait lang. I'll turn the light on here.
Go lang, go lang, go lang. You've done Muay Thai yourself in
Yeah.
Qatar. Yeah, what
Yeah,
got
yeah.
you into that?
It's actually quite a funny and dark story
Yeah.
because I got back in Qatar the status of Filipino
Mm-hmm.
teenagers there are not really, they don't really work well with the local teenagers there.
Mm-hmm.
And we always get bullied for, just being an expat.
Yeah.
And one night I just got
Got jumped.
beaten up by a bunch of
Oh my
I
God.
just got jumped. But yeah, I realized you gotta be ready, you gotta defend yourself
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of that situation coming up,
Uh-huh.
which is a low chance now, but
Yeah. At least in a way, you still kind of know
that happens.
what you have
Yeah.
that background still. Does that did doing Muay Thai or having a martial art or a discipline like that in any way affect any of your art forms right now or any of your work? Did it help or in any way?
In terms of physicality or fitness,
Yeah.
it did help.
Yeah.
Like just being flexible, because
Yeah,
like in Muay
that's
Thai they
true.
also teach you how to be flexible.
Yeah.
So just being flexible and not having to struggle with even just a simple task of going up that thing, like that small island.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a small island in a parking lot
Yeah.
where you have to go over it, and it's
Yeah.
it's a stretch up.
Yeah, that
Even
makes
just that
sense.
simple task wasn't hard anymore.
Yeah, especially like
Hmm.
those times where the entire project is handheld and then you have to hold the camera for the entire
Hmm.
time of the set. I feel
Yeah,
like,
and in terms of shooting, it helped a lot too.
yeah. And I feel like that's why I feel anything can be shot and anything is possible in terms of angles when especially when you're the one holding the camera, because I know you can just get anything and you can just
Hmm.
get on top of everything.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
Like you can sit in a corner counter of a kitchen and
Yeah.
not having a problem stretching your legs down, shooting
Yeah.
something.
That's true. Even for my department, even if I don't necessarily have to do anything that's physically straining,
Hmm.
one thing that really helps me one thing I really noticed in comparing to before I started training and currently when I'm training is that you have to have a certain level of endurance, mental endurance when you're working in a set, because you're usually working in a really 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 long hours. And
Mm.
one thing that people don't understand with that, even if you're just sitting or you're just looking at,
Mm.
let's say, a monitor, you're
Mm.
thinking about different elements. You're thinking about how it's gonna look in the edit. Oh,
Mm.
if since we're running out of time, if I remove this scene, will it still work in the edit?
Mm.
Like a lot of these mental plays happen in your head, and I feel like it's one of the things that I developed when I started training, because especially when I started sparring,
Mm.
it's a people don't understand that sparring is actually, or fighting is a mental game where
It is actually.
right, it's less about
Mm.
just punching harder or kicking harder than the other person, but it's about placing your kicks or feinting, or even
Mm.
it's like chess. It's like if I move,
It's
if
a
I-
lot about
Mhm.
it's a lot about observation and application instead of just power and
Yeah, exactly.
run and gun.
Exactly. It's like if I punch you here, he's gonna move in a certain direction, which leaves him open. It's like there's a
Mm.
lot of plays like that goes through your head when you're sparring, and I've applied it so much in terms of our sets that
Mm.
it just helps me think a lot faster or on
Mm.
my toes. And because one part that's really hard with filmmaking or even just in creating a video is a lot of people don't see the process and how they make it. or how,
Mm.
how we make it. And then a lot of times, and there's not one set that's really perfect. There's always
Mm.
something that's bound to like mess up.
Mm.
And what makes one set better than the other is how do you cope with that mess up, or how do you fix what's wrong, or what.
Mm.
Yeah, because there's definitely gonna be something wrong, like, which I don't think we've ever experienced a really really smooth set, or have we?
No, each set
Nah.
is it has its own difficulties
Yeah,
in terms of
exactly.
challenges.
Like when we shot a music video recently, the light rentals were late, so we had to cut
Mm.
down
Mm.
our studio time. Like a lot of those just come into play. You know, one thing with your department is that it requires you to talk to a lot of people, and
Mm.
it forces you to be it forces you to be extroverted in a certain degree. Like, were you
Mm. I think
ever?
that goes with everybody on
Yeah,
set.
everyone in set has to be really extroverted because everyone is dealing with a number of people. Like for me, let's
Mm.
say it's the clients, or it's you guys, and who you guys ever get, and for you, it's like your gaffers, or your suppliers and all that.
Mm.
Like ever since, were you already this extroverted, or did filmmaking push you to be this extroverted character?
I think it's filmmaking, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
cause I don't like talking to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't used to talking to also like the other crew on film when I
Mm-hmm.
started. I was just a focus puller, so like when you're in AC, you don't really talk to a lot of people. You just say hi, and
Yeah, that's
you
true.
mainly talk to your boss, which is the DP.
The DP, yeah.
But when I started being the DP, that's when I was like, shit, I have to actually
Communicate
learn how to
now.
talk to a lot of people, not even just the director,
Yeah.
but even just the assistants,
Yeah.
the producers,
Yeah, that makes sense.
everybody.
Yeah. Do you have any tips or any knowledge to share, or gems to share to anyone?
I think I have a lot of quotes from different people, but I think in terms of just having your work out there,
Mm-hmm.
like when it comes to music or any art form, you
Yeah.
just have to remember the rule of 10.
Yeah.
The
What's
rule
that
of 10.
What's the rule of 10?
The rule of 10 is 3 people will like your work, 3 people will not like your work, and then 4 people they completely don't give a fuck about your work. So it always has to your work always has to satisfy yourself first before thinking about a lot of people, because most of them they don't really care.
Yeah. That was a great episode, man. I think that was one of the lengthiest episode I had. So yeah, man. Always stay safe, and see you in a couple of weeks because we have a project to shoot.
Yes, dude. Can't wait for that. I
Yeah.
miss shooting.
Yeah.